So before you can sew your own misa, you're going to need to have some very, very basic sewing skills. Now, if you're already in possession of sewing skills, by all means, skip this section altogether. But if you don't know how to sew yet and you're completely a beginner, this is a great place to start. You're going to need 3 things. You're going to need a needle. You're going to need some thread. It can be any color. I recommend just get white. It's probably going to be the easiest, or black, whatever speaks to you. Don't think too hard about it. Just get some good thread. I just recommend some all-purpose thread. And you're also going to need some scissors. You don't need the yoga block, but I'm just using it to show you because it's easy to show you with. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by threading our needle. Now, how do you do this? Now, there are many, many ways to do the skills I'm going to show you. I'm just going to show you the way that I do it. And if you know a better way, by all means, you can do it your way. All right, so you're going to start by taking this end of your thread. Now, here's the trick. You want to take your scissors and cut that thread to a very, very blunt end so you don't have a lot of little fibers sticking out of the top. Okay? Now, some people like to then stick it in their mouth and, get it all spitty and ugh. I don't really like to do that, but if you want to, by all means, go ahead. You're going to take that eye of the needle and you're just going to stick that thread right through, just like that. See how that blunt end gets it through? I find that works so much better than getting my spit all over it, but you do you. Now, here's this, again, this is the way that I do it. I like to double up my thread, so I like to get it, let's see, I'm going to go about an arm's length here. And then I'm going to cut it off. Okay, that's how I like to do it. I like to make sure these ends are about the same length. They don't have to be perfect, but so we don't lose one. I like to take both of these threads and I wrap it around my finger like so. And then I'm just going to roll it. Roll it between my thumb and my forefinger, zoop, 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 like that. And then I'm just going to pull that knot tight. Okay, you may need to do that a couple times before you get the hang of it, but you can see I got a nice little knot there. I'm going to cut off these extra little threads. I don't want a ton of little threads sticking out, just a nice little knot at the end. And that is how you're going to start. Okay, now it's time to start making your Cuarternario. This is what it's going to look like when it's all finished. You can see that it's really just comfy. It's soft, but it's sturdy. I think you're really going to love this. So what you're going to need to do is look in your kit, and you're going to have a piece that looks like this. Okay. You're going to have a piece that mirrors this, that also has these extra little flaps on the side. Okay, it should look opposite. It should look like it's kind of wrong, but there's a reason for that. And then you're going to have this middle part. This is called the batting, and this is what we're going to put right in between. So we're just going to make a sandwich. Let's start with this piece. Okay, we'll lay this out, and then we're going to take this piece and put it over. Now this is really important, you guys. You want to make sure that you line up black with black, gray with gray, white with white, brown with brown. Okay, and we're going to leave those flaps out. Now, let's go ahead and put the meat, if you will, inside the sandwich. And then we'll put this back on top, okay? And that's what you've got. Now, you're going to want to grab your needle and thread. Remember when we put together this needle and thread here? And this is how you're going to start, right? I like to start right in the middle. So let's just go right through, actually, hold up. Let's actually just take our first piece here. We're going to take it off because we want to hide this knot. Remember this knot that we did? Let's hide it so we don't see it. One of the tricks in sewing is to hide all the raw pieces. Don't we do that in life too? All right, let's just take that right up through the middle here. Right in that beautiful center of our Cuarternario. There it is, there it is. Bring that up. Okay. Then we're going to put our needle back through. Okay. And let's go ahead and lay it over how we want it, because what we're going to do is we're going to go back onto this other side here. Okay. We want to bring the needle through the middle right here. Okay, that's going to anchor our whole little baby quilt here. Okay. Now, this is the time-consuming part, but also the part where you get to put your energy into it, because what we're going to do is we're going to follow the lines we've already got. Okay, so we're going to go along, and you can choose any one of these 4 directions to start in. Doesn't matter. Maybe it does matter to you. Maybe you're drawn in a particular direction for a reason. Maybe not. So try to keep your needle right in between those 2 pieces, okay? And then you're going to flip it over. And again, you're going to want to make sure to try to keep the needle right in between so you're staying right on the seam. And you're going to pull that through, okay? We're going to go all the way down to the end of this here, and I'm going to show you how to end off. Now, if you run out of thread before you get to the end, don't worry, because you can actually just end it early and then restart. So that's not a problem either. Now, I'm at the end of my little row here, and so now I'm going to need to end this off so I can start again. I've still got plenty of thread left on this needle, so that'll make it easier for me. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to do my last couple stitches here. Actually, I think probably only one more stitch. I'm going to pull this through. And sometimes the sewing machine doesn't always, sometimes it'll miss like a little tiny, like a millimeter or something at the end. So I'm just going to catch that there and make it nice and sturdy. Don't worry too much, because we're going to put a binding around the whole thing. So, that's about good. All right, so let's say, I'm going to go ahead and enter in here onto my last little stitch. And what I'm going to do is, instead of pulling it all the way through this time, I'm actually going to catch it a little bit better there. There we go. I'm not going to actually pull it all the way through, okay? I'm going to leave this thread, this like loop of thread here, okay? Meanwhile, I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to actually come back through again, okay? So you see what I've got here? I've got this loop of thread, and I've got this needle coming through, okay? So this, what would have been this last stitch, is this giant loop. Now, again, this is how I do things. You may have learned it differently how to end. By all means, do it the way that your grandma taught you or whatever, because that's going to make it more personal for you. But if you don't know how to do it and you want to do it my way, go for it. So how I like to end is I like to go through this loop here, and then I hold on to my thread. I'm going to keep it there. I'm going to pull, 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 and then hold on. And then I'm going to do the same thing again. I held on to that loop. I'm going to pull again. Okay, pull that down. I'm going to do one more. This time I'm going to pull the whole thing. So here we go. And that's going to end it off nicely. Then I'm just going to take my scissors. I'm going to cut that. Maybe leave just an itty bitty little bit, because we'll hide that underneath the binding. All right. All right. It's time to do our next row. So we're going to take this thread. Okay. And we're just going to want to put a knot in the end. I think I did this off camera, so let me cut off this knot and show you again. So I'm going to take the end of this, and I'm going to wrap it around my finger. Okay. And I'm just going to roll it, roll it, roll it, roll it, and pull it tight. There you go. You get to a point where you do this so much, and it just becomes like a body memory. So, all right, let's take this here. So this is the row that I did before, right? I started in the middle and I worked my way to the end. So I'm going to need to get my thread back in there. Let's go back into the middle now. I'm going to put my needle back through the center of my quaternario. Pull it through. There we go. Now I get to decide which row do I want to go down this time. I'm going to suggest it's probably going to be easier for you if you pick one of these and like either work clockwise or counterclockwise. Again, that may or may not be important in the experience of this. Which direction are you pulled to work on? I'm going to go this way. I feel like going clockwise today. So I'm just going to go ahead and work my way up this row. Once in a while, you'll see the sewing machine will sew these ever so just a little bit off right here. Don't worry about that too much because this will probably correct itself as you're working. And even if it's a little bit off, you know, it's got character, and that's the important thing. Anyway, I'm going to work my way back through. Want to make sure. Oops, just stuck myself. Sometimes it can help to wear a thimble if you're worried about that. All right, I'm going to pull that through on this side. There we go. And come back through here. This gets easier and easier the more you do it. Now, I do want to talk right now about the importance of the material you choose to listen to as you're doing this. As you can see, it takes some concentration. It can also get a little bit monotonous. I really like to entertain myself somehow when I'm hand sewing. Oftentimes I will watch TV while I do it. Sometimes I'll just do it in silence, meditatively. Sometimes I'll listen to music. Sometimes I like to socialize while I do it. It's a great thing to do, you know, when you're talking on the phone to grandma. You know, but be mindful because remember, you're doing this. This is energy that you're putting into this piece. You know, you're not just sewing a button on a shirt, okay? You're actually really putting yourself into this. So be mindful of whatever else is going on while you're doing this. This is a good time to maybe use to learn something. Okay, good time to listen to a lecture of some sort. But be mindful again of what is it that you're listening to? What is it that you're putting the energy into this? I actually enjoyed working on mine while I was at the karaoke bar in between songs, because I'd usually be sitting with my friends and I'd be talking, or, you know, someone would be up singing and we would all be singing along. And I don't drink alcohol, so it wasn't like we had a lot of drunk people around us. We were just singing and just having a great time. So that, you know, if you have something like that, a social activity, that's a good thing to do. Maybe if you have a family reunion or something and you've got really good family, it's a good thing to bring and sit and talk and do. Yeah, but lots of things that you can do while you're doing this, but make it your time, make it really special. And all of that is going to be really important for this project. So what do you do if you're like halfway through a row and you realize that your thread is getting dangerously short? This one's actually would probably make it okay, but I want to show you anyway. If your thread's starting to get too short and you're like, I don't think I'm going to make it all the way to the end, do I just cut it out and start over again? You could, but I think that might be like a lot of extra work for you. So let me give you another alternative. You can actually just, let's say that my thread's getting really short. So I'm going to go ahead and just go through this first layer here. I'll go in here to the middle. And I'm going to pull it kind of tight here, but I'm going to just go ever so much to this last little stitch there. Can you see that okay? Let's see if I can zoom in on it a little bit here. Boom, boom, boom. Trying to sew and hold the camera. Here we go. Okay, so I got this last little stitch here, and I'm just gonna put my needle through that stitch. Okay, and I'm gonna do like I did before. I'm gonna make that loop. Okay, and I'm going to go back through the loop. Okay, let's see if I can do this, sir. Back through the loop, hold on to this loop, pull it tight, okay? Back through the loop again, pull it tight, and then back through the third loop again. There we go, pull it tight. And now I can cut off my thread here. And look at that. Now I'm where I need to be. Okay, I can thread my needle again. I'm actually going to cheat and just use the thread that I had so I can show you how to restart again. Okay, and you're gonna open it back up again, and you're gonna go right where you left off, right up through, maybe even a little bit before where you left off, and we just start again, pick up right where we left off. Okay, so isn't that nice? Don't have to panic. Sewing's fun, you guys. Keep it fun. All right, I have finished all 4 directions. Now I'm going to want to do the first stage of our binding. So how do I do that? Let's go ahead and flip it over and take a look here. These 2 little extra flaps, these are going to be the binding as I showed you. So what we're going to do, sometimes the batting will come out a little further than it should. And if it does, that's okay. You can just cut it off so that it's not sticking out too much. This one looks pretty even, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it. So what I'm going to do first is, let's see here. See how this looks? It looks so neat, nice and neat right here. Let me see if I can show you on our finished one. What you're going to have is you're going to have one side that is machine sewn, and one side that is folded over and it's got your hand seam along it, okay? So on this unfinished one here, here's the machine part, right? And then here's the side that's gonna be done by hand. And so what we want to do is we want to take our hand stitches and we want to actually have them, it's called stitching in the ditch, is where we're actually going to have our stitches line up over here. So let me see if I can show you what this means. I'm going to start, first I'm going to hide my little knot. Okay, so I'm going to go right in here, right in between, just to kind of get my needle in there so that it's in the project here. Pull that through. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my piece and I'm going to fold it over, and I want to catch all this extra binding. Like I said, this is where maybe even cutting this, maybe I will cut this a little bit. Cutting some of this excess batting here so that it's nice and even, so that it lines up, can make your life a little easier. Don't be afraid to do that. Okay. Just so that we have this nice even edge here. All right. Now, line it back up here. All right, I'm going to fold this over like so. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle. I'm going to go right back into that little ditch. I'm going to come through and I'm going to go. When I get to this side, I want to make sure I'm right in between the gray and the white. Okay, and I also want to make sure that my needle is coming below all that mess there. And I'll pull that through. There we go. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and work my way this way. Oh, I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go just above the fold, right there, okay? And I want to come through. I want that needle on this side. I got to use some patience here. Bring it so that it, nope, needle, you got to go right in that ditch. You see that? Okay, I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to go back through right? I'm gonna take a look at where my needle's coming through. Is that where I want it to be? Maybe a little bit lower. There we go. And I'm gonna pull it through and I'm gonna work my way all the way to the end. Okay, so it's, again, it's going to look, when you look on our finished one here, this is the side that was done by hand, right? We don't have any raw edges, we just have a fold. And on this side, those stitches, they're there, but see, they're hidden. They're hidden inside that little machine ditch. It looks really neat and nice when you do it that way. Okay, so I just finished that binding on that side. Now I got to go back and do this side, right? And then I'm going to do the same thing over here, and we'll be back when when these two sides are done, and then we'll talk about the next part of the binding. Okay, we've got these bindings done. All right, now what we're going to want to do is we're going to take these two rainbow edge thingies. I don't know what they're called, but we're going to put them on the sides like this. So how do we do that? Well, first things first, it's going to make your life much easier if we go ahead and trim this extra fluff from the side. So let's go ahead and take our scissors and we'll just cut this down so we have a nice even edge. And so as you can see, got these nice even ends. Now I'm going to take one of my rainbow bindings here and I'm going to put it over the edge here. And once in a while, it's very hard to get these rainbow bindings where they're, exactly, where they match exactly with your edge on each one, because they're a little bit different. So I'll show you how to trim the excess after we're done. But in the meantime, what you're going to do, so do you see how I did that? I kind of just put like a little sandwich, just put it over this edge here. And then I'm going to take my needle and thread, and I'm actually going to start from this end over here. So again, I want to hide the knot. So I'm going to come up through, I'm actually going to follow very closely on this rainbow here, the line in between these two blue spaces. I guess it's the light blue and the indigo. Okay. I'm going to come up through there. So I hide that knot. And we're also going to put tassels on the end, so don't worry. So, and I'm actually going to bring it over through the other side. See how that just kind of gives it a nice little edge there. Yeah. There we go. And now I'm just going to sew through, and I want to make sure on each and every stitch that I'm catching my fabric as well as both sides of my rainbow. Pull that through, and you can see it's not going to hold on there while you're doing it. So that's why each and every stitch is going to be super important. So remember to be mindful while you're doing this. You know what? I'm actually going to show you one little trick that might make your life a little easier. So this is optional, but if this flopping around gets to be a little difficult for you, what you can do is take some sewing pins, okay, and then we can put it on there the way we want it. We can put some sewing pins through it, and that'll kind of keep that whole thing from flopping around while you're trying to do your work. Now, while I'm doing my stitching, you can see it's a little easier to keep it lined up. But I still need to make sure that I'm catching the fabric and not letting it slip off. Okay, so I have just about finished sewing it all the way across, but I wanted to show you that sometimes, more often than not, you're gonna end up with a little bit of extra on this side. So I'm gonna show you what to do with that before I completely finish my entire stitch. I'm going to give it a couple inches because we're going to use a lighter, so you don't want to burn your thread off. You'll have to start over. Okay, so I'm going to cut this down maybe like a millimeter longer than the end here. And then now you got to do this very carefully. I'm just giving you a warning. Here, I'm going to fold this back because I don't want to burn my fabric, but I need to use a lighter to seal all these little threads in, okay? So I'm just going to take my lighter, just ever so carefully melt that little end there. There we go. And then, now I've got that perfect line up right there. So, let's finish this off. I'm going to do the last couple of stitches here. I'm going to go through. Now, I'll show you one thing. I'm going to go right in between that indigo and that blue, right? And then I want to make sure that I get my fabric, right? You can actually go there and then come back up through that little line. That way you're absolutely sure you're getting all the fabric in, see? Because you don't want to leave your fabric sticking out in parts that will compromise the integrity of your piece. Okay. Oop. And remember, you know, when you have little imperfections, you can see I just did a little imperfection there, and that's okay. That's going to add to the sort of handmade charm of your piece. So don't, you know, I always say, just don't get so perfectionist about it that you lose track of the point here. Okay, so I'm going to go through the end here, and just like I showed you before, we're going to do our little squaring off. I like to go around the edge like that. We'll knot off the end here. I lost count of how many times. I lost count of how many loops I made. That's okay. Go through. Boop. Pull that, cut it off, and there we go. Now, as I said, this piece is not going to be perfect because we're hand making it, and that's part of its charm. But when you're all done with this, you may find, just like I did, oh no, there was a piece that I didn't catch the fabric. Even though I tried really hard, I didn't get it perfect. Guys, you don't have to be perfect. You're too hard on yourselves. So one of the ways to fix this, first of all, you don't want to just leave it as is, because trust me, this might work for a few months, but it's gonna wear down very quickly, and you want a piece that's going to last you for a long time. One of the things you could do is you could pull out all your stitches and start over, and that's fine. You can do that. That can sometimes compromise the integrity of it too, because now you've kind of worn it down. So nothing wrong with that if you want to do it that way. But I'm going to show you another way to kind of cheat, but it's not really cheating. So I'm going to start, let's see, I'm going to assess first of all, what do I need to fix? I need to fix this little piece here. So I'm going to start a little bit above it. I'm going to start right in between, actually going to use this little stitch here. Come up through there so I can hide my knot. And then I'm going to come down here. And let's see here. I think I'm going to be able to catch it right there. Yeah, that's fine. Come through. I'm going to go through the other side here. And this time I'm going to go through the first layer here, and I'm going to come out. See how I'm coming out below that area? Okay. And then I'm going to come up through the piece that I missed. Just a little ways. Okay. And then I'm going to take my needle and go back up through my ribbon. Okay. And now what that's going to do is that's going to pull that fabric back up under there, okay? And then I'm gonna do the same thing, right? I'm gonna come back, turn it this way a little bit. I'm gonna come back through that first layer of ribbon right there. Okay, then I'm gonna catch the fabric that I missed. See how I'm kind of stuffing it in there? Come back through, making sure I catch the fabric. And then I'm gonna go through this other side, making sure I'm coming through the right area. It's a little tedious. And again, like I said, if you wanna just take it out and start over, that's totally okay too. But this also works. So don't panic, okay? It's okay to be imperfect in our lives. It's okay to be human. And come up here, and I think I might have accidentally caught a little bit of that ribbon on there. That's okay. That's all right. Look at that. See, we're getting that through there. Now, when you get this all done, if you're worried about it, you could go over this row of stitches one more time, hand sew it, then you make sure it's super tight in there. You could also go over it with a sewing machine if you are a person who uses a sewing machine. Certainly nothing wrong with that. You could actually go over all of your work with a sewing machine if you wanted to. You got to do you. This is a piece that's going to be extremely personal to you and all of its perfect imperfections. Okay, so you can see that I decided to go ahead and go over it with an extra set of stitches, and now I feel like it's pretty strong. So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat the same thing on the other side. And this time I'm going to start by pinning it because I know that that made my life a little bit easier last time. Okay, now we get to sew again. All right, at this point, your Cuarternario should be looking pretty good. So the last thing we need to do, tassels. All right, this is actually pretty easy to do. So all we need to do is set our tassels. We've got these little sort of pockets here on our little rainbow things. We're gonna kind of put the tassel in there. See how I did that? And then I'm gonna take my needle and thread. And again, I'm gonna start on the inside because I wanna hide that knot. Oops. Okay, pull that through, grab my little tassel again. And I like to kind of go over the side. It just sort of seals up that little end, and I just wanna come through the loop. Actually, here, let's do this. We'll go through there, and then I'm gonna come through my loop here, because as you can tell, my thread is still inside. Okay, so as I pull on that thread, I'm gonna stuff it back down in there. There we go. There we go. Okay, now, I don't necessarily follow a specific little pattern. I just go through, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 10, I don't know how many times until that tassel feels good. I don't know if the number of times is important to you or not, but maybe it is. Oops, I gotta do these little threads kind of, there we go. You know, sometimes when you're going through this process, you'll find little signs from your spirit guides. Numbers will show up. Patterns happen. So again, that's why it's really important to do this process mindfully and put your heart into it, because this is going to be a very, very special tool that's going to help you in many ways. Now once I've done enough stitches, I'm just going to finish off, and again it's the same way I showed you guys before. We're going to take that last stitch and we're going to go through the loop, through the loop again, and I'll do it one more time, and voila, I've got one tassel done. I've got 3 more to go. That's it. You've finished your Cuarternario. How pretty is that? Yeah, you should be really, really proud of your work. You did a great job.